You are listening to Radio Maria Canada. We now present the Health Hub, hosted by Kathy Biasi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Health Hub. I'm Kathy Biasi, your host, and along with our producer, Alex Diaz, we would like to welcome you to our show this morning. Good morning, Alex. How are you?
Oh, I thought you were going to say shoe shopping. But
shoe shopping, yeah, I know. I'm anticipating things I'm going to say, and it's boggling my mind. Sometimes I actually don't know how I get through an hour of talking to people, because as soon as I'm off air, I can't put two syllables together a lot of times. So anyways, yeah, welcome to our show this morning.
Yes, well, it's good to be with you, Kathy.
Is it?
Yes, for sure.
Start the day off with a chuckle, right?
Exactly. I can always count on that.
There you go.
So it always puts me in a good mood to.
And we're not even gonna tape over this, right? We're just gonna go as is.
Oh no, this was great. This was good. I'm not starting over.
This is reality. This is reality.
Exactly. So at least once in a way, we have to try this once in a way, but. In any case, I'm keeping very well. I was just reflecting over the last couple of evenings. I've had such a busy time with work, the way things are going, but I feel fortunate that I've actually been able to make some time and think about myself in terms of doing some exercising.
Oh, good for you.
Here we go. Finally, just like you, I struggle with words too. So don't worry about that. Now, so with exercising, so I managed to over the last couple nights go for a bit of a walk, and for me, I was able to get my 10,000 steps in for the last few days anyway. I go at least once or twice, 3 times a week. I try to do long walks in the evening. I think for me, the evening time is the best. It's typically cooler. Yeah. Of course, now we're recording this in the middle of September, but who knows what the weather will be when this program airs. Yeah. But it's important to have that balance.
And don't you find that with working more at home? I actually read an article on this. There's no separation of church and state, right? You're at home working, and I think, personally, there's no stop time. Like, there's no definite, okay, it's 5:00, I'm leaving, which is
there's no commute. There's no commute to deal with.
But there's no end of the day either. So there's no definitive end to the work week.
Yes, and for a lot of us, I would imagine, not everybody's fortunate to have a designated work area at home, and so everything kind of just is in a place where you can easily access your computer when sometimes you turn it off.
Or the other thing is true.
Let alone your cell phone that's constantly pinging.
Constantly going. And not only are there not parameters to your work day. So when you're talking about working at home, I have to do a lot of my work out of my bedroom, which I know is not ideal. But also, I don't think, that was my dog. He's with us here. I don't know if you heard him. He's doing a little bit of a whine. So he's here with me today.
You wanted to get on the show, huh?
I guess so. So this is a home thing. But I've also noticed that people will actually call past 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night just to connect and get some things done. So the workday is really starting to mesh in with evening time. And I think that lack of boundary is not a good thing. I really don't think.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm a victim of it as I will work till 7, 8 o'clock, sometimes 9 o'clock at night, and that's not good. I don't think this is a healthy benefit of what's going on.
This is definitely something that can affect everybody's mental health, and that's sort of going back to my point of needing that time for exercise, for example, or anything that allows you to switch off and focus on yourself, whether that's doing something creative like drawing or different artwork or playing music. To
you're walking.
Yeah, exactly. So
right. So that's your end of the day. You've made this commitment to walk at night, and so I think the hardest challenge for that, for you and for everybody, is sticking to it.
Yes.
But this is something I think we need to all be a little bit more aware of, because it can really bother sleep patterns. Right. I think we just talked about how great people are adapting, but part of the adaptation too, we got to keep readapting. So we got to make sure that we have boundaries, or I think it's just going to start imploding on us. We need to have, and the other thing too is that people that for the past 6 months, I've had, my kids are now out of the house, back at school and everything, but for a good solid 4 months, I've had the kids with me, two of the kids with me. And then, my husband's been at home the majority of time for the last 6 months. So that dynamic is much different. So, I think good for you to walk. And I think that's, we all need to make commitment to cues like that to really, keep on top of our mental space. And
obviously, I think we've obviously touched on this, but in the past, but it's important to have that routine at a fixed time, that that the only reason why you're not able to do something is because you've decided not to do it.
Yes.
Not because something came up and it was pushed aside. Mm-hmm. That designated time is for you. You need to decide how you want to do it.
And I think you have to tell other people as well. And I know I'm guilty of contacting you at nighttime too. But I mean, maybe you've got to even say to coworkers or people that, with the ability to jump on the computer and on Zoom at any time of the day, you have to sort of take it into your own hands that, okay, you know what, it's shutdown time. Because if your brain is going, you're on these computers and you're thinking and you're working and, and the pressures of work too, right?
Yeah.
So work can be stressful. You're not giving yourself any sort of a mental break. So important, really important.
It is.
So this has been a great conversation. I'm actually going to defer what I was going to talk about to another show. So we'll just go right into today's show, and I'm going to introduce you to our guest, Melissa Halas, and she is an MA, an RDN, and a CDE, and she'll tell you maybe what all those mean, and is a nationally recognized nutrition expert with 20 plus years of experience helping kids, adults, and communities live healthier lives. As a registered dietitian and mom, she's passionate about making good nutrition easy, tasty, and fun. She is the founder of the first kids nutrition mega site, and it's called SuperKids Nutrition, and it provides expert resources to help grow healthy communities. Melissa is also the creator of the Super Crew, who get their powers from healthy plant-based foods and motivate young children to develop healthy eating habits from an early age. With a strong commitment to living and teaching sustainability, her activities with the Super Crew promote green choices. SuperKids Nutrition partners with the American Institute for Cancer Research on the Healthy Kids Today campaign, and with her over 5,000 schools in the U.S., providing menu activities and parent newsletters. Melissa addresses nutrition concerns for adults, from how much coffee is safe to which foods to eat for brain health. And she has her own website, which is melissahealthyliving.com. So we will provide you with all of these great resources that Melissa has for us. Very knowledgeable lady, very wonderful person to talk to. And so some of the things that we'll be talking about are, what are some tips for transitioning to a plant-based diet? Why is it important for cancer prevention? for children to be on a plant-based diet, and how can we get kids into the kitchen to learn how to prepare healthy meals? It's a fun conversation. It's a great topic, and we'll be back, everybody, to talk with Melissa in just a few minutes.
Again. Can't shake them, can't make them ever fade, ever end. Am I good enough? Do I measure up? Feels like a war I can't win. But I wasn't given the spirit of fear, I was given the power of love. Everything I've been fighting against, I'm gonna lift it up. I wanna be fearless, no holding back, no backing down. Fearless, because I believe you're with me now. Bring on the unknown. Lead me and I'll go. Come set me free. God, I wanna be fearless. I want to be fearless. I want to be. These mountains, these giants will fall at a single word. In your name, in your strength, I'm more than a conqueror. I wasn't given the spirit of fear, I was given the power of love. Everything I've been fighting against, I'm gonna lift it up. I wanna be fearless, no holding back, no backing down. Fearless, because I believe you're with me now. Bring on the unknown, lead me and I'll go. Come set me free. God, I wanna be fearless. I want to be fearless. I won't be afraid. I won't be afraid. I'll call on your name. I'll walk out in faith. I won't be afraid. I won't be afraid. I'll call on your name and I'll walk out in faith. I won't be afraid. I won't be afraid. I'll call on your name and I'll walk out in faith. I'm gonna be fearless.
You are listening to Radio Maria Canada. We now continue with the program, The Health Hub, hosted by Kathy Biasi.
Welcome back, everybody. As mentioned, this show is being taped, so unfortunately no opportunity for calling in. Please do follow us on our social sites. We are on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and we are at the Health Hub RMC on all three places. Melissa, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here.
So we align on many levels. You are very much involved in prevention, in plant-based nutrition, in the cancer space. So I want to make sure that we are covering all of these passions of yours because they are so admirable. But let's start off with why you feel it's so important in any domain of prevention to have a plant-based diet. And maybe before that, do you have a backstory that got you to this place?
Well, I've always been interested in more healthy, organic living, eating more whole foods. And I think that actually started probably in my teenage years. I had a lot of food allergies, so including to pork. And so I just started experimenting with more beans. My mom was just an amazing cook. I mean, I remember, we're going back 40 years, her cooking millet. And I just don't think a lot of people ate, oil seeds and those kind of whole grains. And then in college, I got my first newsletter from the American Institute for Cancer Research. And I just kind of became this groupie. I loved how they talked about fruits and vegetables and whole grains and all of their colors. And, they fund this cutting edge cancer research that really talks about how people can make choices that can reduce their chances of developing cancer. And that it was it was an empowering message. Years ago, you used to hear more, eat, substitute this for that. And their message was choose more of these delicious, abundant colorful foods. And I think it really resonated with me. And that's probably one of the reasons I began my journey. And then, of course, I did teach for close to 20 years functional foods, which really talks about the benefits of whole foods and their phytonutrients, down to their cellular level and how they protect DNA. And this is, before we really knew about blueberries and brain health and visual acuity in the public. It was more in academia. So I think that sparked a really great interest in plant-based eating. And then lastly, which is interesting, is when I was 18, I had read about how we were destroying the rainforest and that many of the drugs that were used to treat cancer were actually discovered in the rainforest. Mm-hmm. And they talked a little bit about aspirin coming from a tree. Now it's, of course, pharmaceutically made, but that's where they discovered it. And I thought, wow, I actually did love beef. And I thought, what, that's one sacrifice I can make. And I can make that, and it will be a little hard for me. So it will mean something to help save the rainforest and potentially, help save people's lives, not just through, environmental consequences, but the fact that some of these drugs that we would discover wouldn't be destroyed.
It all comes into alignment, doesn't it? When you're looking for the greater good, you touch on all aspects of really a holistic life. Where have we gone wrong in your estimation? You talk about teaching so many years ago about functional foods and healthy foods, yet the progression has not been in that direction. The SAD diet, the standard American diet, it just doesn't even align with the basic outlines of the AIRC. So what happened?
Well, I think there are, of course, we're all making progress every day, but I think it's the hustle and bustle of life, and people don't realize sometimes that it takes a lot of planning to eat healthy. It's not that healthy eating in itself is difficult or more expensive. It's just like everything else in life. You have to plan to get to work on time. You need to have your dry cleaning done or your laundry washed. You need to know, especially in LA, where the best traffic route, right? And I think people think like healthy eating is just going to like show up and appear on their table sometimes. And so, as a dietitian, I really work with the meal planning aspect of it. If I'm working with a senior and they say they're just so tired by the time dinner comes around and they want to grab something quick, then we talk about things like making overnight oats. So they wake up, they eat breakfast, and right after breakfast, they can cook. If it's a busy mom, it's about bulk cooking, which could be something like, not that I'm advocating for more TV, especially during quarantine, but on Saturday, my daughter and I put on Harry Potter on my computer in the kitchen, and we cooked for 2.5 hours with that in the background. And it flew by, and we had like 3 days of food prep done because I just didn't want to sit more. We're always trying to move more. And it was fun. We've already seen it, so it's not like you have to pay super close attention. But it really comes down to planning. And it's not just about setting goals. It's about that process to make those goals a success. And again, scheduling it in so it doesn't become a disappearing intention, that just kind of drifts away into the good intention abyss.
That's a good phrase, disappearing intention. And that's really what it's all about, right? They're trying to get into shape. We make plans to go to the gym. We have a project. We make plans to time it in. We go to work. It is about, somehow, some way, nutrition has fallen out of a routine of a daily, the daily basis of our lives. And I think it's starting to come, as you said, we are trying to get better, but it seems that it is starting to come full circle because the rise in these chronic diseases are really causing people to pause and say, what is going on? Is that what you're seeing?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I just did a talk recently. It was a 30-day vegan challenge, and I'm not vegan. I'm mostly plant-based. And, a lot of people were just so interested, and I haven't seen that in the past. And, my whole philosophy is I try to meet people where they're at, right? So, if somebody's drinking, a gallon of lemonade a day, I'm not going to be like, never have lemonade again. It's small incremental steps. So it could be, well, if you're, making ground burgers, right, with ground meat or chicken or turkey, maybe subbing in mushrooms for half of that meat. You've got to really just kind of work with people to make sure that they're making small changes and reinforce to the public, like, it's not an all or nothing. Small changes can make a huge difference if we move a little more and we eat a little less, which is what the American Institute for Cancer Research always says. We can decrease cancers by nearly 50%. And I just think that we fall into this fad diet approach of all or nothing, which causes this cycle of weight gain, weight loss, more weight gain, weight loss, more weight gain. So over time, people are getting heavier. And, instead of just having a realistic, personalized approach to what good nutrition means for each person as an individual. I mean, I don't always buy, the whole cabbage. I buy the shredded cabbage in the bag, Yeah. I open up a can of refried beans and a jar of salsa. I add in some fresh cilantro. But there are a lot of times where I'm cooking and making healthy whole foods that are not from scratch. And I think the perception is, everything has to be done 100% right, or it can't be done right at all.
Now, and I agree so wholeheartedly. And what I think this perception is of it's got to be, I don't know if it's the perception that it's got to be done perfectly or that change needs to happen right away, which is the society we're in now, right? Like instant gratification. And this is putting so much stress on people, and it's an all or none approach. And you really have to get into the joy of cooking and the joy of eating and the meal and the preparation that seems to have been lost out of this whole process. How do you bring that back into the kitchen?
Well, the first thing, with me personally, I do like to cook. I also work a lot, right? So I try to do a mix of foods from scratch. Like, so for example, I recently made these, I'm always trying to perfect my black bean beet burger recipe. It's like always evolving. And recently I switched from brown rice to oats. And I'm like, I just don't have the time to like hand roll each burger and then flatten it out and then cook them, 4 or 5 at a time on a grill pan. Cause I like to bulk cook and then stick things in the freezer, label it, and pull it out during busy work days. So now I'm into making food that you can just cook in a huge sheet pan. So I made this huge sheet pan of black bean burgers. For years, Wendy's had those square burgers. So what's wrong with a square bean burger, right? And then, once I bake it, I took out the pizza roller, right, cutter, and just rolled them into squares. And it cut the time down by like an hour. So, you can cook healthy, but it's really about these time-saving strategies. I also love kitchen gadgets. I know for some people they collect dust, but, a food processor, quickly chopping or mincing, mushrooms or garlic or onions. You're shaving like 25 minutes off food prep.
Yeah. And that's, this all or nothing. And, nobody has to be perfect. Your diet doesn't have to be perfect. You can have a few cheat things, but you're going for the bulk, right? You're going for the majority of your diet to be healthy. Yeah. So when you're working with somebody, how do you set up their plate?
So, obviously it's more plant forward. So at least, half of it is going to be, vegetables for the most part. And then a quarter lean protein. And then, fruit, I usually don't think of it on the plate. I kind of think of it as dessert on the side. So typically, you would, if you're looking at my plate, it would be, a quarter lean protein, a quarter whole grains, and then your, quarter fruit and vegetables. But I really like to load up on those vegetables and think of fruit as dessert. And I found that a lot of my clients, if they eat a serving of fruit at every meal, they don't have those sweet cravings. They're not, wanting that late night snacking or pretzels or refined flours like in the afternoon. And I think, thinking of fruit as this, like, it finishes off your plate, it's helped a lot of my clients.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's some clients who don't struggle with sweet cravings. They're more savory or greasy or fried. And then that's a different approach. It's like if you're having a plant-based meal, top it with roasted, lightly salted cashews, making sure that you're getting that umami flavor, like a combination of Bragg's liquid amino acid, like a soy sauce, and a balsamic vinegar. It really gives it that umami flavor. And they have to make sure they're having all their tastes in order to feel satisfied. Because the bottom line is food should be enjoyed and it should taste great. So, I'm not going to force people to eat broccoli. There's actually a genetic predetermination if you like that or not, right? So it's about figuring out what you like that tastes healthy.
Now, what about dealing with people who literally have food fear? I know in practice, I come across this many times, especially when working with cancer patients. They're paralyzed because they're so concerned about not eating the wrong food and not sure what the right food is. Do you have an approach for dealing with this paralysis when when you open your fridge door?
Yeah. So, one of the things I do when working with clients is first I have like a whole questionnaire to find out what their approach is to learning. Some people just want to be told what to do. And if you just tell them, no, soy is actually okay and it's healthy and this is the forms you should eat it in, where other people want to know all the science behind it. And, other people just want to know how to eat it. So it's really finding out first how they want to be educated. And that way, when you're approaching it, you're not doing it wrong, right? Because it's using their kind of mindset and their philosophy for learning. The other thing is for food phobias in general, it's always good if you say, okay, you want to try this new food, and you pair it with something that they already like that they know is good for them. But I guess the biggest things that I get asked for that are flax and soy, and a lot of times it's just. Unfortunately, there's so much misinformation that recirculates, on the internet for decades. And sometimes it's from, an original study that was done poorly or done in mice where they, overloaded a certain phytonutrient, and people keep on extrapolating that and then misinterpreting it incorrectly. So I feel like, if I can simplify the science for my clients and really show them the literature, and summarize it in lay terms, that alleviates a lot of those fears.
It's so true. The science can be, no matter what question you ask, you can get an answer for it in research if you look hard enough. What would you consider your key foundational or functional foods that you encourage your clients to incorporate when they're transitioning more to a plant-based diet?
Oh, well, absolutely beans. First off, I'm crazy about beans. So I probably eat beans every day. And if certain clients have problems with that, there's enzymes that you can take. It's slow, a gradual increase. Of course, there's always people who have, irritable bowel syndrome, and I have to kind of work with the dose that they're allowed, that they can tolerate. But for me, black beans, we're always talking about acai, which I do like, but it has to get shipped from so far away. And of course, that leaves a carbon footprint. And yet black beans, they're grown in the US or Canada probably. They're not this food that has to be imported. And they have just as many antioxidants and phytonutrients. So for me, it's really about looking at color. If you look at plant-based foods, every plant-based food can have, tons of phytonutrients. And there are the plant compounds that give each food its unique color, but also its health benefit. So I try to say, hey, just aim for like 4 to 5 different colors of plant-based foods, and you build from there. So, but definitely, beans, because they're such a great source of protein and fiber. And, we just as a nation, and I'm sure it's an issue in Canada and really in the world for U.S. adults and kids, we're grossly and inadequately our intake is so poor on fiber. I mean, there was an Haynes study which really looks at, different dietary habits, and they found that, 95% of Americans aren't meeting their fiber needs. And fiber, of course, you just can't take a supplement. You really need to get it with all the other nutrients that go along with that food. I mean, there's thousands of phytonutrients, and these have anti-inflammatory effects, decrease different risks of cancer, can help lower cholesterol. So aiming for, starting out with 4 to 5 different colors of plant-based foods is really helpful.
Yeah, the fiber thing, I wrote about that a year or two ago, saying this is going to be the nutrient that people are really going to start focusing on. And it's a challenge when people are trying to do intermittent fasting or calorie control. I find getting the amount of fiber in a diet is very on a good day is difficult. But when you're trying to eat within a window, you really do have to pay attention to that. And I think you're absolutely right. I think that's for the microbiome, for cholesterol, all those other things that you talked about. It's so key to get that worked into your diet. Melissa, we're going to take a quick break here, and then I want to spend the second half of our show talking about the program that you've put together, this awesome program to work with kids in the kitchen. So everybody, we'll be back in a couple of minutes.
There is a truth older than the ages. There is a promise of things yet to come. There is one born for our salvation, Jesus. There is a light that overwhelms the darkness. There is a kingdom that forever reigns. There is freedom from the chains that bind us. Jesus, Jesus, who walks on the waters, who speaks to the sea, who stands in the fire beside me. He roars like a lion, he bled as the lamb, he carries my healing in his hands. Jesus. There is a name I call in times of trouble. There is a song that comforts in the night. There is a voice that calms the storm that rages. He is Jesus, Jesus. Who walks on the waters, who speaks to the sea, who stands in the fire beside me. He roars like a lion, he bled as the lamb, he carries my healing in his hands. Jesus, Messiah, my Savior, there is power in your name. You're my rock and my Redeemer. There is power in your name, in your name. You walk on the waters, you speak to the sea, you stand.
You are listening to The Health Hub here on Radio Maria Canada. A Catholic voice wherever you are. To contact us and be a part of the show, email thh@radiomaria.ca. We now continue with the program. Here once again is your host, Kathy Biasi.
Welcome back, everybody. We are talking with Melissa Halas, and we're talking about functional foods. We're talking about transitioning to a plant-based diet. And I think the reason for it was laid out quite nicely in the first half. Melissa, you have founded SuperKids Nutrition. So this is something that I really want people to get a grasp of. It's a beautiful program, and it's vital in the area of cancer prevention, but in the area of disease prevention as a whole, I believe. Can you tell us about the program?
Yeah, so I started SuperKids Nutrition 14 years ago. I was a new mom. I had been a dietitian close to 10 years at that point, and I couldn't find anything online on kids' nutrition. That's hard to believe today because it's so saturated, online. But there wasn't anything, and it had been a while since grad school, and I wasn't sure. Oh my gosh, pretty soon I'm gonna be introducing my baby's first foods. And so I could only find one hospital website that had an article on it, but you had to go through multiple departments and layers. It was really hard to find that internal link. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to start the first dietitian-based kids nutrition website. And so we launched. Within a couple years, we were listed on the USDA as a credible website. We started partnering with schools, and it's grown. I mean, we have over 6,000 content items. We have tons of activities that are printable, from coloring sheets to cooking with your kids. And we have these super crew characters, which were actually focus group tested through a Center for Disease Control study from ages 3 to 11. They're multicultural, and they get their powers from different color plant-based foods. So, Andy, one of the characters, if he eats carrots, he can see around corners. And so they all have these different, benefits from eating these foods. Super baby Abigail, when she eats blueberries, she's super smart. And it's just a really fun way to teach kids about healthy eating. And what was so cute is when we, would go into the classrooms and we would talk about the super crew and use the curriculum, the kids, it wouldn't matter, what their race or their age or their gender was. It didn't correlate to their favorite super crew character. And I just loved that about it, that it just, I just feel like they really kind of got the message of that, healthy eating is fun, and the super crew characters helped it. And then, so, we have everything from pregnancy nutrition all the way to when you send your kid off to college, what they can make in the dorm. And so after about, 8 or 9 years, I started thinking, wow, we really need to talk about cancer prevention and how it starts young, because, we teach kids to put on sunblock so that they don't get skin cancer. We tell them to look both ways when they cross the street, but we're really not teaching them from an early age that what they eat, especially to parents, teaching parents that, what they feed their child at 4, 5, 6, and 7 impacts their genetic expression, at anywhere in their adulthood. And even in their teens. I mean, there's research to show that, obesity in overweight teens, it's correlated to colon cancer later in life. And so I launched with this program with the American Institute for Cancer Research to kind of raise awareness that, making good nutrition fun and eating more plant-based can help prevent, nearly 50% of cancers later in life.
It's an outstanding program, and I think the more that we move beyond this idea that if you're destined to get cancer, you're destined to get cancer, this is where programs like yours come into play. We have so much power over how our expression, our genetic expression is what's the word I'm looking for? The genetic expression. We have so much power over our genetic expression, and it does start with our lifestyle and especially with what we eat. So how do we get parents to get their kids into the kitchen? Are there actionable steps that you can share with us?
Oh my gosh. First off, make it fun. Don't cook with your kids on a day you're totally stressed out or exhausted. I think that's the number one important message to tell parents. And I think the second thing is let go of any expectations, that, and then third, just embrace the messy kitchen.
Of course.
So I think those things are important. Also, really making sure that your child gets involved in figuring out and choosing together what recipe they want to make. And, it's the parent's responsibility to kind of give some options that are healthy to begin with. So you're not, the first thing they're not picking is like some, brownie recipe that's loaded with sugar and white flour, right? Hey, I was looking at these recipes and you print them out and they're all healthy. Which one do you like? You don't have to emphasize that they're healthy, right, in the beginning, but, which one are you excited about? If you have a child who's already, a big fruit and veggie guru, then of course, you can search online together. But sometimes, offering choices up front is easier for a child than to choose one of the healthy options and feel more empowered by their choice. And then, when you get in the kitchen, you got to get all the ingredients out first and make sure you didn't forget anything, because that can be an additional stress. Getting the tools out and all the ingredients instead of doing it as you're cooking, it just kind of really decreases that stress level. And it's something fun that's easy that a child can succeed at, even at a younger age. And, not getting frustrated if they didn't see, the baking soda that's like in clear view, right at the front of the cabinet. Putting on some of your favorite tunes so that you're kind of like setting the mood. And don't be too ambitious. Pick something that's simple and easy to make, especially if you're cooking together for the first time.
And this isn't about restriction, right? I mean, you don't want to send your kids to school necessarily with something that's very restrictive and much different than everybody else's, so to speak. This is not about a restrictive piece of their nutrition plan. It's about embracing, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it really depends too on where you're living. Like I remember at my daughter's first school, there was, sadly, like, oh my gosh, I forget what they're called. They're like hot flaming Cheetos, and just, kids would bring in like a ton of junk. So I don't think you have to meet that low standard.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Enough.
Like, I think that, if 65% of Americans are overweight or obese, do we really want our kids to be eating what the majority is eating? Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying, they should pack this kind of lunch that's at complete odds. Of course, you can pack a cookie, but there should be at least 4 food groups. Yeah. that are healthy. So I kind of, if you have those conversations from the time your child is young, it's definitely easier. But of course, you can make a healthy change at any point.
And
in life.
It's great when the kids start transitioning to the point where they're packing their own lunches. And I think that there are some amazing lunch boxes out there that are really helpful for the kids, divided into 4 spaces or 5 spaces that are really interesting and offer the kids an opportunity to express what they want to take.
Oh, absolutely. I love the little bento boxes. I used to pack my daughter when she was young, frozen corn and frozen peas. And she would come home and she's like, Mom, everybody wanted my peas and corn. And I'm like, you have to tell them that it's your lunch and you're hungry. And so one of the moms emailed me and she's like, I don't understand. My daughter keeps on saying she wants frozen corn and peas like Abby. And I pack it every day and then it comes home and she hasn't, ate it. And I said, you got to pack it frozen. And she goes, oh, I was like defrosting it. I said, no, they like to eat it really cold. That's why it's fun.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I never thought of that. So going back,
their vegetables.
It is a great way.
I mean, anytime. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Melissa.
I was just going to say, anytime you can vary, the temperature, the texture, the shape, the size, kids get more interested.
Let's move farther back in childhood then. So you've got a new mom. How can she start initiating a plant-based whole foods diet at the beginning of the feeding phase?
So, I mean, really, it's about not falling prey to all the marketing, that they need this like white flour biscuit or, that these are the normal foods to eat. Like, you see these ridiculous birthday celebrations and the child's one and they're eating like, food dye. And
Mm-hmm.
like,
Yeah.
it's like no reason for it. I just think, the more we normalize junk, the more kids want it all the time. Like it's okay. You don't want to demonize it either. Right. But at the same time, does a 1-year-old really need a traditional birthday cake? I mean, they really don't. I mean, you're doing that for yourself, not for a 1-year-old doesn't know the difference. Obviously, when they're older and they're going to have cake, right? You don't have to make it this super healthy cake. I mean, kids can enjoy a variety of foods like even potato chips, and desserts, but it's about making the bulk, at least 80-20 healthy. Ideally, if you can work up to 90-10, that's even better. And of course, from an early age, don't use food as a reward. It really makes those foods just seem like gold to a child. So you'll see it like if you're quiet and I'll give you a donut. If you're good at church, you can have some other kind of indulgent food. When you have those foods from an early age, they should just be foods to enjoy, not as a reward. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. And, I've made mistakes with food with my kids for sure. And there are expediencies that parents do, and then the crux of a moment. But I think the message to plant here is the overall diet. And, you've written a couple of books about this for athletes and exercise enthusiasts. How do you bring the whole picture together then? So the nutrition, the exercise, all of it, when you're talking to people to present to them the most healthy lifestyle?
Yeah, I mean, I always say, let's look where you're at right now and just build on it. It doesn't have to be 100% plant-based. I mean, plant-based is more plant forward. It can vary. I mean, there are some people who like myself, I occasionally eat fish. I still consider myself eating a plant-based diet because it's majority of it is plant-based. I mean, the benefits are just tremendous. With the books you're referring to, I have a cookbook and I have a book for just everyday exercise and athletes to show that eating more plant-based really boosts those antioxidants in your diet, that the anti-inflammatory benefits are there. And then, of course, for people who are like running or, having endurance events, you're definitely going to have a higher carbohydrate storage or glycogen storage in your muscles. So there's some competitive advantages to that. But even just, I find, I'm not a competitive athlete. I used to cycle a lot, but, we're talking like 75, 100 miles, but not in competitions. And, eating more plant-based, you just have higher energy. I mean, think about all the phytonutrients that you're getting that just even help with neural connections. I mean, your neurons are your basic working unit for your brain. And there's lots of research to show that phytonutrients enhance that communication, and your neurons, your brain is communicating with your whole body. So, and you're not getting those if you're eating more whole plant-based foods, if you're replacing that, white bagel with a corn and polenta bread, which I just came up with, which was, it's polenta and sorghum mixed together. And it was like the best bread I've ever made. And, something like that, you're not going to be getting that spaced out feeling that you can get with refined flour. So you just have more energy to accomplish what you want to accomplish. And then, introducing those same plant-based foods with your kids. And that's where I have my, my Super Crew books, which really kind of make it engaging and fun. And what's funny is I had a couple grandparents tell me, they bought the books for their kids. And one specific grandmom said to me, it's been really helpful. I'm using a lot of the points from the Super Crew book with my husband. because the messages are really simple and they're resonating. And I'm finally getting him to eat more plant-based foods. And I just cracked up. I'm like, they should, he should be reading it to the grandchildren, right?
Well, you're knocking it out of the park with all ages, are you? That's great.
It's fun. I mean, I just think there's so much variety and taste. I mean, if you think about something like meat, right? There's ribs, there's a hamburger, there's different ways you can eat it. Well, the same thing with beans. I mean, you can eat it in a burger, you can have them in a salad, you can make them into a dip, they can be pureed into a soup. I mean, there's so many tasty varieties of whole grains. It's endless. 1 month I might, be on an amaranth kick. And the next month I'm like, wow, I need to re-explore sorghum. It's endless. It's endless.
It's funny. Sorghum is not something that I've incorporated here at home. I don't know why. It's just not, I never see it on the shelves. Maybe I'm not.
Flour. That's so good. I really like the flour. So I recently, I wanted pizza one day, and I'm like, I'm going to mix pre-cooked polenta that comes in a tube. I poured some olive oil on it and nutritional yeast, and then about, half a cup of sorghum in this polenta mix. I mashed it all up with a fork, and I made a couple little patties and cooked them in the pan. And then I was like, I wonder if this will taste good in the air fryer. And I cooked it in my air fryer, and it was like deep dish Chicago pizza.
Really?
It was so good. Yeah, I'm going to make a blog post on it just because it's just one of those recipes you're going to want to revisit. And then I just served it. If you want to do 100% plant-based, which is what I did that day, is I caramelized a bunch of onions with olive oil, and then I blistered tomatoes and with a ton of fresh herbs in a cast iron pan, and then I put them over the patties.
I just love to talk to people who are creative. It just gives me so many ideas. It's wonderful. That sounds delish. Now, just before we come to the end of the show, a big thing that people are talking about now, and what I see a lot of people asking and gravitating towards, are immunity foods. Now, do you separate immunity boosting foods out of your plant-based and really focus on that? Or are you more of the notion that a whole plant-based diet is the best? Because immunity is a big thing these days.
Oh, no, absolutely. I love to talk about individual foods and their benefits. Matter of fact, I just wrote a couple articles on immunity, and I'm going to pull them up so I can just reread what I wrote. I have them right in front of me. But I mean, of course, one of the things that I often recommend is ginger. And I don't really have a sweet tooth. I find if I do eat fruit at each meal, but sometimes I'll want a piece of chocolate, and I'm like, I worry about, there's a lot of cadmium, which, can increase your risk of kidney cancer in dark chocolate and cocos. And it's actually hard to find a safe brand, that doesn't have levels that, are a little too high, and it's cumulative. It has a long half-life. So sometimes instead of having my dark chocolate, which I love, I'll have crystallized ginger. So like unsulfured crystallized ginger. And sure, there's some sugar in there, but I don't really get much sugar in my diet. And ginger has tremendous, immune boosting benefits. So definitely that's a food that I think, stands out. Garlic, I mean, that's been kind of known for years. It can even enhance certain effects of antibiotics to make them more beneficial. It has antibacterial and antiviral properties. So I cook a lot of garlic. Of course, I also chew gum.
Yeah.
Because, and then foods that are rich in vitamin D are extremely, important, especially now, during COVID-19. We need to make sure if we're not getting adequate sun, that we're taking in foods that are high in vitamin D. Now, for it's a little difficult to find mushrooms that are labeled with vitamin D, but if you can find them, mushrooms that have been exposed to UV light right after harvest have a ton of vitamin D. I mean, a half a cup can have, over 350 international units. So I definitely recommend mushrooms. And, it's funny, even if you don't think you like mushrooms, a lot of times it's how it's prepared. Because I make this, my daughter still eats some meat, and she loves lean ground turkey, and I make her this mushroom ground turkey meat. And I wasn't hiding it from her, but, when she was younger, she wasn't always watching me cook this one dish. And one day she had it and she goes, Mom, these turkey burgers aren't as good as usual. And I said, oh, honey, I didn't have any mushrooms in. And she goes, I hate mushrooms. There's mushrooms in there. And so now she's 14, so she cooks a lot of the stuff herself. And, she chops up the mushrooms with garlic, another immune boosting food, with the soy sauce and balsamic vinegar, and it gives this umami flavor, and then you can add it into the meat. Now you can do the same thing, adding it into the beans, which also, are going to have an immune boost because there's a lot of anthocyanins in there, which are powerful antioxidants. So mushrooms for sure. Mm-hmm. Bell peppers, they can be higher in pesticides. So I will say when you can choose organic, they're a vitamin C powerhouse. So are kiwis. 2 kiwis have twice as much vitamin C as an orange. So yeah. And then herbs, if you look at the amount of antioxidants in herbs, even if it hasn't been sitting in your pantry shelf forever, dried basil is loaded. 2 tablespoons of dried basil is going to have 3 times as much antioxidants as 1 cup of cooked carrots. So I'm always telling people, for an immune boost, herb and spice up your meals. Keep a little spice shaker on your table instead of a salt shaker, and then grow fresh herbs. I have a ton of fresh herbs because they're so easy to grow. Oregano grows like weeds, and I just go outside and just grab them, and you can grow them in a pot. I have them in a big bed, and then I just add them to my food.
So many tasty ways to get your immune boosted. It's getting back into the kitchen is so important. And I do see trends that people are really trying to make a concerted effort to do that. And what you're doing, I think, is fantastic. And I love the program for kids. And I'd love to see studies about kids who start off in the kitchen eating plant-based. It'd be great to see long-term studies on that and chronic disease and so forth. But that takes time, and it takes a lot of effort. I understand that, and funds.
Yeah, there's a lot of good research on type 2 diabetes and plant-based eating. Mm-hmm. So I'm always trying to get people with type 2 diabetes to eat more plant-based. But I failed to mention the name of the campaign is Healthy Kids Today, Prevent Cancer Tomorrow, and you can find it both on SuperKids Nutrition. .com and also AICR.org. So definitely, I hope people will check it out and print out some of the activities and the curriculum and the recipes, and just start cooking with their kids.
So important. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing all of your information and really inspiring young parents with their young children in the kitchen. When the podcast comes up, so after our show has been aired and the podcast comes up, all your information will be there, so people will have it right at the tip of their fingers to go onto your site and learn more. So Melissa, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You too. And everybody, we'll talk to you next week on the Health Hub.
You have been listening to The Health Hub